it is the world's largest cocktail party this week as Georgia takes on the University of Florida. The first game for the Florida Gators since Billy Napier has been fired. Billy Gonzalez is going to take over as the interim head coach. Georgia coming into this one after escaping the last couple of games, are away from Stanford. When you look into this game, Georgia versus Florida, a massive rivalry. What are your thoughts?
Georgia's favored by 7.5 points on FanDuel for anyone who's interested in betting on this game. Blake, this game is admittedly one of the hardest ones to just generally preview the entire college football season. We talked about in the open. Fired Billy Napier. What does it do? How does Florida respond? That team has always rallied around adversity and they have responded. They have some really solid, good defensive pieces. And they have had instances this year where they have completely dragged down their opponents and forced them to make critical errors. This Georgia team has been on a heater as of late, especially offensively. They're running the ball at an incredible clip. They're producing a lot of big plays through the air, as Gunnar Stockton quietly deserves more recognition in the Heisman discussion. But Blake, plain and simple, as much as this game could end up being tight and really dramatic, I think that Georgia has every capability to win this game, to win it confidently, to not have to really deal with much stress. The one thing that I didn't totally register, Blake, about this Florida team, their sack production is actually pretty bad.
Yes.
Not having Caleb Banks has kind of contributed to this, but Tyreek Sapp's sack production has not been to the degree that we expected. 13 sacks on the year is incredibly underwhelming, and they are so far this season giving up a couple, some pretty big plays defensively through the air. EPA per pass, they are 74th in college football. So Blake, that's my first starting point about this. They are not really effectively equipped to slow down the one thing that's going really, really well for Georgia.
Here's the thing, and I don't think defensively, to your point, much changes under Ron Roberts and company. I'm with you there. I do wonder, though, how when I look at an interim head coach and I look in this game, does Ron Roberts go for broke? Like, does it matter? Like, can he be more risky in sending pressure, which, as somebody that I know very well, it's not necessarily something that Ron Roberts likes to do a lot. He likes to get home with 4. But Joe, when I look at this game, I wonder what offensively that anything of what they're going to look. I think Florida going into this game has got to try to suffocate the time of possession. They got to out Georgia. Now, you look at the statistics and you look at, and I'm going to ask you what is Florida's EPA per rush? Do you have that, by the way?
Offensively, their EPA per rush is 60th. So it's not great.
But what's the yardage?
What are they producing?
Yeah, what is the actual Yes.
What are you asking? Are you asking their yards per game or yards per
yards per carry?
I will tell you that right now.
Okay. The reason I bring that up, Joe, is because they're 102nd in the country in rushing. Jaden Ball's a really good back. In the games that they were the closest in, knocking off some of these really good teams, go ahead, what is it?
4.1 yards per carry as a team.
So I look at that and say, I wonder if they can try to suffocate the time of possession, and Billy Gonzalez tries to do something different here with what actually works with the team and the system. Now, he's a wide receiver guy. I don't know if he doesn't try to get, go bombs over Baghdad here and they start throwing the ball all over the place. I don't know what to expect. I do think that if you're Florida and with all of the problems that they've had, your biggest strength is leaning on that run game, because look what you've done against the great opponents or really good opponents that you've played. If I'm Florida, I'm trying to out Georgia, with quite frankly, a team that hasn't gotten much pass rush either. So you are going to be able to have time. You can sit back in the pocket and do things. You know that. Keep the ball away from them and don't let this game slip away. Last thing I'd say in reference to this, you talked about Georgia. I think that the depth and everything going on there, that they do lean on them later. I do think this one can be close early. I think it's going to be close because I don't think anybody, Kirby Smart included, I got to be real with you, Billy Gonzalez included, I don't think anybody knows what to expect going into this game. But I look at this and say, if you don't get pressure and you don't get guys after DJ Lagway and you give him time, we have seen him pick people apart. His biggest problem is when he's under pressure, he makes bad decisions, and that's when things start going downhill.
I think one layer with this that you didn't say directly, but you kind of alluded to it. We haven't seen Florida's offense orchestrated by somebody that's not
named Billy Napier. Yeah.
So this is the big part with this that we could end up seeing. Was there someone in the building that had really transformative ideas that weren't being allowed to be creative?
Like Russ Callaway.
Seriously, you have Lagway, Dallas Wilson, you have Brunell Brown. You've got all these guys that started to emerge when it was way too late. Maybe there's some sort of a universe here. And I'm not saying that Georgia, I really don't think Georgia loses. I really, really don't. Maybe this ends up being a crazy upset, but I really, really don't think it comes to fruition. But that has to be something that Georgia needs to be wary about. They got to be worried that you could be facing a completely different offensive attack. The playbook's not going to change drastically, but the decision-making in specific situations will probably be done very, very differently. And it's to this point where if you're not pressuring DJ Lagway, does him having time available to himself to operate in the pocket when he's not getting flustered, does he start to show the flashes of what he was last year before this rough start to the season and when he was banged up and all that? The other thing I'd throw in here, Blake, Florida's defense, their run defense is their strength. They've got really good linebackers. They've just done a really good job of bottling up opposing rushing attacks. So this has to also be an emphasis point for Georgia that you need to get the ball going early on the ground. You can't bail like you've done in the past when the run game isn't working early, and you need to just continue to ride your guys. You just need to keep leaning on them until the game starts to open up. All right, man. My point is that don't ask Gunnar Stockton to do everything because we've seen the problems that has caused in other instances, maybe less with Gunnar Stockton, but try to have balance.
You're going to have to. Look, the biggest lie in all of this, Joe, is going into this game is I think people forget how good Florida is defensively. Now, you talked about their pass rush. You're not wrong there. But, Joe, they're 31st in the country in run defense. They're top 45 in total defense. And they're 67th in the country in pass defense, but they're constantly on the field. Knock, 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 knock. We said something last Monday to the University of Alabama and to the fans of the University of Alabama. You can look at a team like South Carolina and say, this is a really bad football team. And you would not be wrong in saying that this team has massive amounts of issues. Florida literally just fired their head coach. Clearly, they have issues. Do not underestimate this defense. Do not underestimate the physical style of play that they will show up with in a massive rivalry game against you. Their number one goal right now, that locker room, let's call it what it is. They cheered when Billy Gonzalez became the interim. They loved it. How many players you see from Florida right now hitting the portal, announcing that they're hitting the portal like you've seen at Oklahoma State, UCLA? You hadn't seen any at LSU right now. You hadn't really seen many from Penn State, and I understand that. But they are sticking here. And there's one thing that I've learned about this locker room that Billy Napier did do well. Boy, they will buy in.
Yeah.
This defense, do not sleep on them. I've been leaning and talking a lot about Florida here. But I do think Georgia rolls. I do think Georgia's able to overcome in the depth, and after halftime, they're able to figure everything out. Even if it takes them that long to get moving, I think that they roll here, and I think that run game does finally get moving. Gunnar Stockton makes a lot of big plays. I think they've done a really good job at finding and getting the tight ends the ball when they need to. But there is one thing that I would say, Georgia fans, that going into this week, it's a rivalry game. You should be always worried about games, whatever. Dallas Wilson and Brown are really good wide receivers, true freshman wide receivers that can make plays, and that would be my biggest concern. But I do think Georgia's ultimately able to break through in the run game, and Gunnar Stockton make some big throws to win it for him.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think they're just like Georgia fans who are in the know and follow the team a lot closer than we do, understand that this is a matchup where even if it feels like you control the game, Florida is still going to be breathing down your neck. They're not going to allow easy separation. And it's to this entire point. This has always been a roster that has rallied around any issue, any adversity, whatever it was. I don't think that this is the type of team to quit. I just don't. Because even as bad as they were at the beginning of the year, they weren't quitting. They weren't. They were still scrapping. They were trying. They were doing it. It just didn't work out for them with a lot of the issues that they had. It compounded and it caught up to them. So that's the biggest part with this is Georgia might win, but you can't look at Florida and go, we're going to kick the shit out of them because anything can happen in a game like this.
I need to see Georgia try to find a pass rush. You've had 2 weeks. Yeah. And I know that Kirby has not, they love getting home with 40. You're going to have to be very creative here. Schumann's going to have to start getting creative on how they send guys. You can't rely on Allen to be your pass rush. An interior guy cannot be your main guy in pass rush. And so it's going to be indicative because here's what I think it's ultimately could happen. And because I do think that, listen, Billy Gonzalez is going to probably want to throw the football around, even though I think it's a dumb game plan for whatever it's worth. I think you need to try to suffocate the time of possession. But the bottom line here is they got dudes, man. This Florida team – listen, nobody wants to talk about it. They got legitimate guys that will probably go in the first round on both sides of the ball, and you can't overlook them, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah. No, that's it's a good way of putting it. We'll see what happens in this game, though. It's going to be an exciting one.
It's going to be a really exciting one.
Yeah.